For the first time, we are seeing how ranked choice voting works in an election in the district. The Democratic primary races for at-large D.C. council member and Ward 1 council member both went through multiple rounds before a winner was declared. So let's get to the Ward 1 race, where Aparna Raj wins just under 52% of the vote in the final round of counting under ranked choice voting. Moving now to the at-large council member seat, Oye Oweliwa wins the Democratic nomination with just under 51% of the vote after several candidates were eliminated in the ranked choice counting process. And he joins us now in studio to talk about his recent declaration, his win after coming off the Democratic primary nomination. You officially have it now. How does it feel?
Oh, it's tremendous. You know, we're going to be the first Nigerian American on the council potentially, first healthcare worker, even someone who lives in Ward 8 being on the at-large council member. But instead of focusing on our differences, we actually focus on our commonalities. The need to bring more jobs back to the district, the need to shore up our budget, even fight back against ICE. So really proud of our campaign, really excited about the next steps.
Tell me your thoughts about ranked choice voting. Clearly this has gone through multiple rounds to get to this final declaration. Are you satisfied with the way in which this election has worked thus far?
Well, the whole idea of ranked choice voting is to make sure that there's no vote splitting amongst candidates, that we're really trying to bring in coalitions, and we did just that. We had 9 really great candidates in this race, and we were lucky to be able to come up on top. But being in a ranked choice voting situation, we ran more positive campaigns. We made sure we left no stone unturned and really tried to make sure we talked to every DC resident possible.
What does it look like for you in the months ahead? You have the general election that will take place in November. You're going up against your Republican challenger, Mr. Darrell Green. What does that look like for you?
Well, whether it's Mr. Green or even all the independent candidates as well, really just going out there, really making sure that we're not just resting on being the Democratic nominee, but really focus on all voters, whether they're independents or beyond, just making sure we are touching every matter that every DC resident really cares about, whether it's affordability, whether it's housing, whether it's about public safety, really trying to make sure we engage all the topics possible.
Well, let's talk about some of those topics, which include affordability. People have been really concerned about the cost of everyday goods, even living in the city. How do you go about addressing that in a sort of sustainable way? Mayor Bowser has talked about the budget shortfalls that a new council, a new mayor will be walking into. How do you see this sort of bridging the gap with that budget deficit that lies ahead, but also meeting the needs of DC residents?
Well, first we have to focus on what we have. We have about 10 to 15,000 vacant units in DC. Whether it's preservation or incentivizing people moving in, that's really important. Number 2, we got to get a handle on these utility costs. Whether it's public utility services or even just trying to find ways to rein in those costs is going to be very critical. Last but not least, we got to bring jobs back to the district. At a time that we face a nation-high 10%, we need to bring international development careers to rehire USAID workers, hire State Department employees. Because if people don't have incomes, then it doesn't matter how cheap we make rent, how cheap we make groceries. We need to make sure we invest in the working class and the middle class as well.
Where do you see sort of the relationship between the council, the mayor's office, and President Trump? President Trump clearly has made a sort of a threat, someone have taken it as, regarding whether or not Janice Louis-George, in fact, won the Democratic nomination for mayor, which she, in fact, did. She'll move on to the general election. We expect that she will win. Of course, we need to wait for all the votes to be counted at that point. Clearly, there is a tense relationship there between the city council leaders in D.C. and the president's office. How do you sort of bridge that gap? How do you deal with that?
Well, the first thing we need to do is have a unified front with the mayor's office. Right now, we see the mayor Bowser over here and sometimes the council over there, and it put too much on her shoulders as she faces the threat from Donald Trump. Number 2, as a council, we had to create a budget that actually supports the everyday needs of D.C. residents, whether it's increasing the legal assistance fund for non-citizens to make sure that they are protected before they get in touch with ICE, or even trying to make sure we find ways to protect DC residents without being on the camera, so to speak, so we don't attract the ire of the Republican Congress as well as the president, but also being the current shadow representative. Going to talk to our friends in Congress to protect us, make sure that our laws aren't tampered with, make sure our budget isn't frozen, and making sure that this National Guard occupation finally ends. These are the things that makes DC residents safer, and hopefully we can have a better relationship with the White House and the Congress in due years.
A lot of people, last question before we go, are frustrated with the speeding cameras around town, no matter who you are, where you are on the political spectrum. Where do you fall on speed cameras in the district?
Well, I believe we need to look into speed bumps, Red Hawk beacon lights, things that make people safe. I do not believe we need to remove the speeding cameras, much as to the chagrin of my friends who are getting attacked the most. But we also need to find ways to beef up the STARE Act so we can actually go to Marylanders and Virginians who owe DC money. You know, when you're seeing these dangerous accidents, a lot of times these are people who don't live in D.C. that racked up thousands in traffic tickets. So we need to make sure we hold those accountable.
Oye Owaliwa, congratulations on your nomination, sir. We appreciate your time.
Thanks for having me.
All right, thank you.